Reported earlier this week, the run-up to next week's presidential election in Kenya has been marred by a rise in the level of political violence. Tonight we investigate how women candidates are being targeted, some even killed, as they campaign for election. In the second of our special reports, Cleopatra Mukele spoke to victims, relatives, the Kenyan police and those behind some of these attacks.
Kenya is in the final days of a national election. An election that on the surface promises a new age of politics, with more women standing for positions than at any time in this country's history. I was born and raised here and have returned to investigate a worrying phenomenon that is accompanying the voting. An upsurge in violence and even murder of women candidates.
She
just explained to me that she just wants peace and she wants the elections to run peacefully, especially for Elizabeth Ongoro, who she's campaigning for.
But there is little peace here, as one former female political candidate has found out.
This is the funeral of Alice Ndutu, the first female aspirant to be murdered in Kenya.
Alice was a single mother of 4 children. She had been a greatly loved figure in her community. She was gunned down by assassins as she sat in her car, 8 bullets into her chest and head. Why would such a brutal murder be carried out? Despite their grief, the family invited me into their home. Flora Igoki was a friend of Alice. She is also another parliamentary candidate who has suffered from a vicious attack. Set upon by 5 men, she was beaten, her head shaven, and was forced to eat human excrement.
One of us has actually been murdered in cold blood. So this is just intimidation for women to stop talking, to stop vying for elective posts.
In the last 3 months, over 20 women running in these elections have been subjected to attacks. One of these women was Asha Hussein. I traveled to see her to find out why such targeting goes on.
How are you doing? I'm okay.
Asha is no stranger to violence. Her home is a refuge for battered women and children. But for Asha, the violence she suffered was more than the evils of domestic abuse.
It was a political violence because when they were fighting me, I thought it was just a normal thuggery, and they were telling me to step down on the campaign, the one I'm doing.
And what was equally worrying was the absence of any police protection for the few women who did seek a career in politics. So I arranged a meeting with the police to find out what they thought about the problem.
Who do you think is attacking these women who are running for seats in Parliament?
Let me inform you that so far actually no woman parliamentary aspirant per se has been attacked. The lady who was fatally attacked at midnight on Saturday had contested during the nominations and lost. So she was not an aspirant as at during the time she was attacked.
This response, although technically correct because of the complex electoral system, showed a shocking disregard to the murder of Alice Ndutu. It revealed to me more than a little about the attitudes of the authorities towards the protection of its female political class.
We're on our way to the outskirts of Nairobi. I've managed to get access to a group of boys who've actually been involved in some of the attacks that have been going on against the women. I'm a bit apprehensive, but I really want to know and understand the motives behind some of these attacks, and to perhaps get an insight into what leads these boys into doing some of these violent attacks against the women.
In a small shed, I met 3 boys who would attack women for as little as $20 US. The boys only agreed to speak with covered faces not because they were ashamed of what they had done, but for fear of being recognized.
The most recent attack they did, he's not going to say who it was or where it was, but it was a high-profile politician. It was at a rally, and they were given direction to attack that particular woman. What did you do exactly? Unaweza kunielezea mlifanya nini?
Sisi si wanza hivi. Kwanza kwa mwanamke. Tutakushika vibaya.
He's just explained to me that what they do is once they surround you, they touch you up in your private places. So as a woman, you kind of jump up, and as you react, the attack begins. And it's kicking you, punching you. And actually, he's just explained to me that the more sound you make and the more cries you make, the better he feels, because he actually has absolutely no emotion when he's doing it. Who's behind this and who's telling you to do this? Tell me, is it politicians or is it rich people? Unaweza kunielezea ni watu wa siasa?
Ni mtu wa siasa. Mkubwa mwenye na jina. Na mwingine.
He just said, and they've just told me, it is a politician, a high-profile politician who's made a name, and it's also a high-profile politician who is trying to make a name.
I had returned to Kenya in the hope that I would experience democratic elections that gave greater voice and power to women. Sadly, as this investigation shows, I have found a country that is oppressing and attacking women who want to lead and bring change to Kenya. Cleopatra Mukele, More4 News, Nairobi.